My name is Chloe Anderson, 68 years old and retired art teacher from Boston. I always thought family meant safety and love. My son Thomas was my pride, and when he married Diana, I welcomed her with open arms. How wrong I was. Our trip to Santorini was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became a nightmare when my own daughter-in-law tried to murder me for my money. The most shocking part wasn't surviving the fall from that cliff, but what happened after. Before I tell you what happened on that blue cliff edge in Santorini, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and subscribe if you want more stories about family betrayals and unexpected comebacks. 5 years ago, my husband Jeffrey passed away suddenly from a heart attack. We had been married for 42 wonderful years, building a life I was proud of. Jeffrey had worked his way up at New England Insurance Group, eventually becoming a senior executive. His smart investments and generous life insurance policy left me financially comfortable in my retirement. Our only son Thomas was 38 at the time I met Diana. He had followed a different path than his father, becoming a software engineer for a tech company in Boston. Thomas had always been sensitive and kind, perhaps too trusting sometimes. He had his father's gentle eyes and my stubborn chin. After Jeffrey died, Thomas would visit every Sunday, helping with house repairs and keeping me company. We were close in that comfortable way that comes from genuine love and respect. Then Diana entered our lives 3 years ago. Thomas met her at a charity gala his company was sponsoring. He called me the very next day, excitement bubbling in his voice about this incredible woman he'd met. Diana Martin was 34, worked in pharmaceutical sales, and according to Thomas, was the most fascinating person he'd ever met. When I first met Diana for dinner at Thomas's apartment, I was impressed. She was undeniably beautiful, with sleek dark hair and bright green eyes that seemed to take in everything. She asked thoughtful questions about my teaching career and seemed genuinely interested in my stories about famous artists. She brought an expensive bottle of wine and knew exactly how to make Thomas laugh. I remember thinking how confident she seemed, how put together. Their romance moved quickly. Within 3 months, they were living together. By month 8, Thomas proposed with his grandmother's ring, the one I had given him after Jeffrey died. The wedding was small but elegant, just how Diana wanted it. I noticed she didn't have many family members attend, explaining her parents had died in a car accident years before, and she was an only child. There were a few friends who seemed oddly uncomfortable, but I dismissed it as wedding day nerves. The first year of their marriage seemed perfect. Diana organized lovely holiday gatherings, always making sure I was included. She would call me randomly, just to check in. She sent thoughtful gifts on my birthday and Mother's Day. Thomas seemed happier than he'd been since his father died. Looking back, there were subtle signs I missed or chose to ignore. Diana would casually bring up financial topics at dinner. How was my retirement fund doing? Had I thought about what would happen to the house eventually? Was I updating my will regularly? Each question seemed innocent enough in the moment. During their second Christmas as a married couple, I overheard Diana pushing Thomas to ask me about my inheritance plans. "Your mother isn't getting any younger," she whispered when she thought I was in the kitchen. "We should know what to expect." Thomas sounded uncomfortable, telling her it wasn't appropriate to discuss. When I entered the room, Diana's smile snapped back into place so quickly I almost believed I'd imagined the conversation. Still, I dismissed my concerns. Thomas was happy, and that's what mattered most. Diana was likely just practical about financial matters, something Jeffrey always said I should be more mindful of myself. The first real argument came when Diana suggested I sell my home, the one Jeffrey and I had lovingly restored over 30 years. "It's too much house for one person," she insisted during Sunday dinner. "You could get a fortune for this place and move into something more manageable. We could help you look for condos." "This is my home," I responded, surprised by her persistence. "All my memories with Jeffrey are here." "But it's not practical," Diana continued, her voice taking on an edge I hadn't heard before. "The stairs could become dangerous as you age. Wouldn't it make sense to sell now when the market is good?" Thomas looked uncomfortable, caught between his wife and mother. "Diana, Mom loves this house. Let's drop it." The tension hung in the air for days afterward. Thomas called repeatedly to apologize for Diana's concern. She had sent flowers with a note about only wanting the best for me. I accepted the apology, not wanting to create a rift between us. After that incident, Diana seemed to recalibrate her approach. She became even more attentive, calling daily and stopping by with small gifts. She praised my cooking, asked for family recipes, and seemed interested in every aspect of my life. Yet something felt off about this renewed attention. Her questions often circled back to my finances or health in ways that felt calculated. Thomas had become less like himself, more quiet and deferential to Diana's opinions and wishes. When I tried to talk to him privately, Diana always seemed to appear, steering the conversation to safer topics. Then came the suggestion of the trip to Santorini. It was March, and Diana proposed a special family vacation to celebrate my upcoming birthday in May. "You've always wanted to see Greece," Diana said enthusiastically over brunch. "Thomas and I want to take you. All expenses paid, our gift to you." "That's incredibly generous," I said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "You deserve it, Mom," Thomas added, squeezing my hand. Diana had already researched everything. I found the perfect villa in Oya with the most spectacular views. "It's private but close enough to town. You'll absolutely love it." The excitement of the trip overshadowed my lingering concerns. Perhaps I had misjudged Diana. This thoughtful gesture seemed to prove her heart was in the right place after all. As I packed my suitcase in early May, I felt hopeful that this vacation would strengthen our family bonds and help us move forward together. How wrong I was! The beautiful blue waters of Santorini were hiding dangers I never could have imagined. Our arrival in Santorini took my breath away. The island rose from the sea like a mirage, white buildings gleaming against the most intense blue waters I'd ever seen. As our shuttle climbed the winding road from the port to Oya, I felt a childlike wonder. At 68 years old, I was finally seeing the place I'd dreamed about since my college art history classes. "It's even more beautiful than the pictures," I whispered, watching the sunlight dance across the caldera. "Wait until you see our villa," Diana replied, her hand resting possessively on Thomas's knee. I made sure we got the absolute best. The villa exceeded all expectations. Carved into the cliff face, it featured 3 bedrooms, a private infinity pool, and a terrace with unobstructed views of the caldera. White walls curved organically, leading to blue domed roofs and windows that framed the sea like living paintings. The place must have cost a fortune. "This is too much," I protested weakly, overwhelmed by the luxury. "Nothing's too much for family," Diana insisted, directing the porter where to place our luggage. I noticed Thomas quietly checking the price on his phone, his eyebrows rising in surprise. Diana quickly redirected his attention to the private access path that led down toward the water. "See that path?" she pointed out. "It goes all the way down to a small cove. Very exclusive, very private." "Is it safe?" I asked, noting how steep and narrow it appeared. Diana smiled. "Perfectly safe, if you're careful. The property manager said it's one of their selling points. Not many villas have direct water access." That first evening, we dined on the terrace, feasting on fresh seafood and local wine as the sun set in a spectacular display of orange and pink. Thomas seemed relaxed for the first time in months, his arm draped around my shoulders as we admired the view. Diana took dozens of photos, insisting that Thomas and I pose near the edge of the terrace. "Move back a little more," she directed. "I want to capture the full drop behind you." Thomas pulled me forward instead. "That's close enough to the edge, Mom." Diana's smile tightened momentarily before she laughed. "I just want the perfect shot." The next morning, Diana suggested we explore the town, while Thomas caught up on some work emails. She linked her arm through mine as we wandered the narrow streets, pointing out jewelry stores and art galleries. Her questions seemed innocent enough at first. "You've always been such a strong swimmer, Chloe. Do you still swim regularly?" "Not as much as I used to," I admitted. "The community pool isn't the same as the ocean." "We should try swimming in that private cove," she suggested. "The water looks so inviting." As we sat at a cafe overlooking the sea, Diana's phone rang. She stepped away to take the call, but not before I saw Thomas's name on her screen. Their conversation seemed intense, Diana's voice dropping to a harsh whisper. I caught fragments. "Not much longer and stick to the plan." When she returned, Her smile seemed forced. Thomas is being difficult about work. He should be focusing on our vacation. That evening, I noticed growing tension between them. Thomas was drinking more than usual, his movements tense as Diana spoke in clipped tones about their investment portfolio taking unexpected losses. When I entered the room, they immediately changed the subject. The pattern continued over the next 2 days. Diana became excessively attentive toward me, planning special mother-daughter outings to exclusive spots around the island. She insisted on taking photos of me near precarious viewpoints, always encouraging me to step closer to edges for better angles. Meanwhile, Thomas became increasingly withdrawn, spending hours on his phone or staring vacantly at the caldera. When I tried to speak with him privately, Diana would appear as if summoned, steering me away for another activity she'd planned. On our third night, I woke around midnight needing water. As I approached the kitchen, I heard Diana's voice, unusually harsh. "We're running out of time and money, Thomas. We can't wait much longer." "This doesn't feel right," my son responded, his voice slurred slightly from wine. "She's my mother. And she's sitting on a fortune while we're drowning in debt," Diana hissed. "Do you want to lose the house? Everything we've built?" I retreated silently to my bedroom, heart pounding. What had Thomas and Diana gotten themselves into? Were they in financial trouble? Why hadn't my son come to me for help? The next morning, I decided to search for answers while they were both out on the terrace. Diana's tablet was carelessly left on the nightstand in their room. I hesitated, guilt washing over me at the invasion of privacy, but concern for Thomas won out. The browser history revealed searches for undetectable poisons, accidental death insurance claims, and inheritance laws, Massachusetts. Most disturbing was a saved email confirming a life insurance policy taken out on me 6 months earlier, with Diana listed as the beneficiary alongside Thomas. My hands shook as I carefully replaced the tablet. This couldn't be happening. Not Diana, not my daughter-in-law, not with my son's knowledge. There had to be another explanation. That afternoon, I discovered Diana going through my travel documents and medication while I was supposed to be napping. She startled when I entered the room, quickly explaining she was looking for aspirin. The calculated smile never reached her eyes. When I tried to speak with Thomas about my concerns that evening, he dismissed them entirely. "Mom, you're imagining things," he said, rubbing his temples as if fighting a headache. "Diana's been nothing but wonderful to you. Maybe the sun and travel are getting to you." "Thomas, I found her searching through my things. And I saw some disturbing searches on her tablet." "You went through her private things?" he asked, his tone suddenly defensive. "Mom, that's not okay. Diana works in pharmaceuticals. Research is part of her job. And she was probably just organizing your documents to be helpful." His defense of Diana felt rehearsed, his eyes unable to meet mine fully. Something was very wrong with my son. His typical thoughtfulness had been replaced by this hollow version, who couldn't or wouldn't see what was happening. That night, Diana announced she'd planned a special birthday dinner for me at an exclusive restaurant in Oya, followed by a surprise. My birthday wasn't for 2 more days, but she insisted on celebrating early. "I've arranged for something really special," she said, her green eyes glittering with an emotion I couldn't quite place. "A private sunset viewing at the most beautiful spot on the island. Very few tourists know about it." As I dressed for dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Should I refuse to go? Make an excuse to return home early? But what about Thomas? I couldn't leave him alone with Diana, not when he seemed so unlike himself. The birthday dinner was elaborate and expensive. Diana ordered the finest wines and seafood, making toast after toast to my health and happiness, each one feeling more hollow than the last. Thomas barely touched his food, complaining of stomach discomfort that had been plaguing him throughout the trip. Halfway through dinner, Thomas suddenly stood up, his face pale and clammy. "I need to go back to the villa," he gasped. "I think something didn't agree with me." Diana immediately shifted to concerned wife mode. "You poor thing. You've been fighting this for days. Go back and rest. I'll make sure your mother gets her special sunset surprise, then I'll be right home to take care of you." As Thomas left, I saw Diana slip the waiter her credit card, settling the bill with efficiency. "Shall we go see that sunset now, Chloe? It's the perfect time." Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to follow Thomas back to the safety of the villa. But a strange determination had taken hold. I needed to know exactly what Diana was planning. And perhaps, a part of me still couldn't believe my own daughter-in-law would actually harm me. "Lead the way," I said, forcing a smile. "I can't wait to see this special place." Diana led me away from the restaurant, past the crowded tourist areas of Oya, toward a less developed section of the caldera rim. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Under different circumstances, it would have been breathtaking. "Is it much farther?" I asked as the path narrowed and became increasingly rugged. We had been walking for nearly 20 minutes, the sounds of the town fading behind us. "Just around this bend," Diana assured me. "Trust me, it's worth it." The most spectacular view on the island. The path grew precarious, hugging the cliff edge with no guardrail. On our right stood the sheer caldera wall. On our left, a drop of hundreds of feet to the water below. I slowed my pace, carefully testing each step on the loose volcanic rock. "Diana, I'm not sure this is safe." "We're almost there," she called back, moving with surprising confidence in her sandals. "Just follow exactly where I step." We rounded a sharp bend, and the path opened to a small promontory jutting out over the sea. Under normal circumstances, the view would have been spectacular, with unobstructed vistas of the entire caldera. But there was something ominous about the isolation. No other tourists, no nearby buildings. Just us, the setting sun, and the long drop to the water. Diana's demeanor changed once we reached the viewpoint. The solicitous daughter-in-law vanished, replaced by someone colder, more calculating. She stood several feet away, blocking the narrow path back to town. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said, her voice flat despite the words. "The perfect place to say goodbye." A chill ran through me despite the warm evening air. "What do you mean goodbye?" Diana laughed, a harsh sound nothing like her usual melodious chuckle. "Come on, Chloe, you're not stupid. I think you've suspected for a while now." "Suspected what?" I asked, playing for time while scanning the area for escape routes. There were none, just the narrow path behind Diana and the sheer cliff face. That this family vacation was never about celebrating your birthday. She took a step closer, her green eyes cold and assessing. It was about solving a problem. And what problem would that be? My heart hammered in my chest, but I forced my voice to remain steady. "You." Diana's smile was knife-sharp. "Or, more specifically, your money. The money you're planning to leave to that ridiculous art school instead of your own son." My breath caught. My revised will. I had indeed decided to leave a substantial portion of my estate to the Boston Arts Academy, where I'd taught for decades. But I'd only made that decision 2 months ago, after meeting with my lawyer privately. How could Diana possibly know? Reading my confusion, Diana smirked. "Surprised? Your lawyer's assistant is very accommodating when presented with the right incentives. I know all about your new will, Chloe. The one that cuts Thomas's inheritance in half. Thomas would understand. The school gave me my career, my purpose, and he's still getting half." My mind raced, connecting dots I'd previously ignored. "The life insurance policy. You took one out on me." Diana clapped slowly, mockingly. "Very good. Yes, a substantial policy. Combined with what Thomas still gets from your will, we'll be quite comfortable. Enough to pay off the gambling debts. Enough to keep the lifestyle I deserve." Gambling debts? The pieces were falling into place. The financial tension, Thomas's strange behavior. "Thomas has a gambling problem?" Diana laughed. "Oh no, not Thomas. He's far too boring for that. The debts are mine. Your perfect son had no idea until they came calling with threats. Nearly $500,000 to some very unpleasant people." Thomas was shocked, heartbroken even. Her voice turned mocking. His perfect Diana, not so perfect after all. So this whole marriage, I felt ill. Was calculated? Yes. Thomas was the perfect target. Only child, wealthy mother, desperate for love after his father died. Men like Thomas are so easily manipulated when you know which buttons to push. She shrugged casually. "I needed access to money, quickly. You were the obstacle. Does Thomas know what you're planning? I asked, desperately hoping my son wasn't part of this nightmare. Of course not. He thinks I'm reforming, getting therapy for my gambling addiction. He's been so supportive. Her smile turned cruel. The stomach problems he's been having? Small doses of something to keep him weak and compliant. Nothing lethal, just enough to keep him out of the way tonight. Horror washed over me. She had been poisoning my son. You're a monster. I'm a survivor, Diana corrected coldly. And unfortunately for you, your survival doesn't fit my plans. Someone will figure it out, I said, taking a small step backward, feeling loose rocks shift under my feet. The police will investigate. Diana gestured expansively at the isolated location. A tragic accident. An elderly woman, perhaps disoriented or seeking a better photo, ventured too close to an unmarked cliff edge. It happens to tourists every year. By the time they find your body, if they find it, we'll be back in Boston, grieving appropriately. My back was nearly to the cliff edge now. Diana advanced slowly, her expression eerily calm. Why are you telling me all this? I asked, desperately searching for options, for time. Because you should know why you're dying. And because dead women tell no tales. She stepped closer. Any last words, mother dear? In that moment, survival instinct took over. I lunged to the side, trying to get past her to the path. Diana was faster, younger, blocking my escape. We grappled briefly, her strength surprising me. I felt her hands on my chest, shoving hard. And then I was falling. They say your life flashes before your eyes when you're about to die. That wasn't true for me. As I plummeted toward the sea, only one thought filled my mind. Thomas. My beautiful son in the clutches of this manipulative woman. I had failed to protect him. The impact with the water knocked the breath from my lungs. Pain exploded across my back and shoulders. The salt water burned my eyes and throat as I fought against the shock, against the weight of my clothes pulling me down. Don't panic, I told myself. You know how to swim. But my limbs felt leaden, unresponsive. The current pulled me, tossing me against rocks hidden beneath the surface. Each impact brought fresh pain, but also jolted me back to awareness. I broke the surface, gasping. Above me, silhouetted against the sunset sky, I could see Diana's figure watching from the cliff edge, waiting to ensure I didn't survive. My strength was fading quickly. The shore seemed impossibly distant. Each wave threatened to pull me under for good. As darkness began to creep into the edges of my vision, a strange peace descended. I thought of Jeffrey, wondered if he would be waiting for me. Then suddenly, impossibly, there were hands grabbing me, pulling me up, a voice, heavily accented, shouting in my ear. "Hold on, lady! I got you!" As consciousness slipped away, my last thought was that I must be hallucinating. No one could have reached me in time. No one even knew I was here. I was wrong about that too. Drink this. Slowly. The voice penetrated the fog of pain and confusion surrounding me. My eyes fluttered open to see an unfamiliar face hovering above mine. Weathered brown skin, salt and pepper beard, kind dark eyes creased at the corners. I was lying on what felt like a hard wooden surface that rocked gently beneath me. A small fishing boat, my mind supplied hazily. The man held a bottle of water to my lips, supporting my head with a calloused hand. Where? My voice emerged as a painful croak. You are safe now, on my boat. His English was accented but clear. I am Nikos. I pull you from water. Memories flooded back in a terrifying rush. Diana. The cliff. The fall. I tried to sit up, but pain lanced through my body, forcing a gasp from my lips. Be still, Nikos urged. You are hurt, but nothing broken, I think. Very lucky. How did you find me? I managed to ask as he helped me sip more water. Nikos gestured to fishing equipment stacked neatly in the small boat. I fish these waters every evening. Best spot near the cliff. I saw everything. His expression darkened. The woman push you. I saw it clear. I struggled to process his words. You saw everything? Nikos nodded grimly, reaching for a waterproof bag tucked under the seat. He pulled out a smartphone in a protective case. I film the boats and tourists sometimes, to show my grandchildren the crazy rich people. He tapped the screen and turned it toward me. Today I filmed something else. Through blurry eyes, I watched shaky video footage showing the cliff edge where I'd stood with Diana. The quality was surprisingly good, capturing our confrontation with perfect clarity. Though the audio was faint beneath the sound of waves against the boat, Diana's actions were unmistakable. The deliberate push, her watching my fall, the casual way she turned and walked back along the path afterward. "Evidence," Nico said firmly, putting the phone away. "For police." "No," I said, surprising myself with the vehemence in my voice. "Not yet," Nikos frowned. "But this woman, she tried to kill you." My mind was racing despite the pain and shock. Diana would return to the villa, tell Thomas I had accidentally fallen. By the time any investigation started, they would be back in Boston. Diana would have access to everything she wanted. My son would remain in danger. "If she knows I survived, she'll try again," I explained, wincing as I shifted position. "And my son. She's been poisoning my son. I need time to figure out how to stop her permanently." Nico studied me for a long moment, his weathered face thoughtful. "What you think to do?" A plan was forming, desperate and perhaps foolish, but the only option I could see. Let her think she succeeded. Let her think I'm dead. "Pretend you died," Nico said slowly, comprehension dawning. "I have the video, evidence for later." "Yes, can you help me?" The Greek fisherman stroked his beard, considering. "My daughter Sophia is police officer here in Santorini. Not high rank but good cop. She helped us do this right way." Relief washed over me, followed immediately by pain as the adrenaline began to fade. My body was a catalog of injuries the shock had temporarily masked. Bruises, cuts, scrapes, and what felt like at least one cracked rib. "First, we get you medical help. My sister Marina was nurse for 40 years. She fix you without hospital questions." Nico started the boat's motor. Then we make plan with Sophia. The next few hours passed in a blur of pain and careful movement. Nikos brought me to a small house on the less touristy side of the island. His sister Marina, a formidable woman with silver hair and swift, gentle hands, cleaned and bandaged my wounds, wrapped my ribs, and gave me something for the pain that made the world soft around the edges. I drifted in and out of consciousness on a narrow bed in a cool, dark room that smelled of herbs and sea air. Voices murmured in Greek nearby, occasionally switching to English when addressing me directly. When I fully awoke, the room was lit by a single lamp, and a young woman in a police uniform sat in a chair beside the bed. She had Nikos's eyes and kind expression, though her features were finer. "I am Sophia," she said, offering a glass of water. "My father told me what happened." "How are you feeling?" "Like I fell off a cliff," I replied, attempting a weak smile that pulled at my split lip. Sophia didn't smile back. "What this woman did? It is attempted murder. We should arrest her now." I struggled to sit up, and Sophia helped position pillows behind me. "If you arrest her now, she'll claim it was an accident. Tourist tragedy. It would be her word against mine." "We have the video," Sophia reminded me, "which shows the push, but not the conversation before, not her confession about poisoning my son." I gripped Sophia's hand. "She's dangerous, more dangerous than I realized. I think she may have done this before. She married my son for access to my money, created gambling debts as a cover story, and has been systematically manipulating and poisoning him to keep him compliant. If we move too quickly, she might hurt him or disappear before justice can be served." Sophia frowned, professional caution warring with understanding. "What you suggest is unusual, I know. But I need time to gather more evidence, to make sure my son is safe, to understand the full extent of what she's done." I took a deep breath, ignoring the stabbing pain in my ribs. "Has anyone reported me missing yet?" Sophia consulted her phone. "Yes. Your daughter-in-law called the tourist police 2 hours ago. Hysterical, according to the report. Claims you wandered off to take sunset photos and never returned to the meeting point. The performance had begun already. She'll be reaching out to authorities in Boston soon, probably contacting my lawyer about the will. If we do this your way, Sophia said slowly. It would mean letting her begin the process of claiming your assets. You understand this? I do, but my lawyer won't release anything significant without a death certificate, which will take time since my body won't be found. I managed a grim smile. Time we can use to build an airtight case against her. Sophia and Nikos exchanged a long look, some unspoken family communication passing between them. One condition, Sophia finally said. 3 days maximum. Then we go to my captain with everything. I cannot allow more time than this without compromising my oath as officer. 3 days, I agreed. It would have to be enough. Over the next 72 hours, from the safety of Nikos and Marina's home, we pieced together Diana's scheme. Sophia used her police access to monitor the official reports and Diana's activities. Nikos's video was professionally enhanced by Sophia's tech-savvy nephew who worked in digital security. The news reports began the very next day. American tourist presumed dead after fall in Santorini. My name and photo appeared in local papers and on tourist warning websites. Diana gave tearful interviews about the tragedy, positioning herself as the devastated daughter-in-law who had just wanted to give me a special birthday celebration. She is good actress, Nikos growled, showing me a news clip on his tablet. Look how she cry on command. Through Sophia's police contacts, we learned Diana had taken out a substantial life insurance policy on me 6 months earlier, with herself as the primary beneficiary and Thomas as secondary. She had also been making inquiries about expediting probate proceedings before my accident had even occurred. Most disturbing was Sophia's discovery that Diana Martin wasn't her original name. Fingerprint records from her tourist visa revealed she had previously been Diana Kostas, married to a wealthy Greek-American businessman in Chicago. Her former mother-in-law had died in a suspicious accident 4 years earlier, though nothing had ever been proven. She has done this before, Sophia confirmed grimly. Different name, same pattern. My worry for Thomas grew with each new revelation. Sophia assured me he appeared genuinely devastated in his brief public appearances, supported constantly by Diana, who never left his side. By the 3rd day, my injuries had improved enough for travel. Sophia had secured fake identification documents and arranged for a private boat to take me to Athens, where I could catch a flight back to Boston using the alias she provided. Remember, Sophia cautioned as she handed me the documents, official investigation is still continuing. I will push from my end, but you must be careful. This woman is dangerous and clever. Nikos embraced me carefully, mindful of my injuries. You are a brave woman. My family in Boston will help you if you need. Cousin Dmitri owns restaurant in Greek neighborhood. This is address. He pressed a paper into my hand. You go there if you need safe place. As I prepared to leave Greece secretly while my own death was being reported in the news, I felt a strange mix of determination and fear. Diana had tried to kill me once. She would certainly try again if she discovered I was alive. But now I had something she didn't expect: evidence, allies, and the element of surprise. I will contact you when I reach Boston, I promised Sophia. 3 more days to gather what I need there, then we move forward with official charges. Sophia nodded. Be careful, Chloe. Some predators are most dangerous when cornered. As the boat pulled away from the small private dock, I watched Santorini's famous white buildings glowing in the distance. What had begun as a dream vacation had transformed into a nightmare, but I was no longer the victim. I was a survivor with a mission, to save my son and bring a calculating killer to justice. Diana thought she had eliminated me. She was about to discover how wrong she was. The flight from Athens to Boston was excruciating, both physically and emotionally. Every jolt of turbulence sent pain shooting through my still tender ribs. The fake passport Sophia had arranged identified me as Margaret Wilson, a 70-year-old Canadian tourist. I wore a gray wig, glasses, and clothing I would never normally choose, purchased from a shop in Athens. During the 9-hour flight, I rehearsed my plan repeatedly. I couldn't go home, couldn't access my bank accounts, couldn't contact anyone who might inadvertently alert Diana to my survival. With limited resources and a body still recovering from trauma, I had only one safe option: my younger sister Patricia. Patricia lived in Brookline, just outside Boston proper. We had always been close, though we saw each other less frequently since Jeffrey's death. She was the only person I could trust completely, the only one who would believe my story without question and help without hesitation. The taxi dropped me at Patricia's address just after 10 at night. I paid in cash from the funds Sophia had given me, then stood on the sidewalk gathering my courage. "How do you tell your sister you've returned from the dead?" I knocked on the door, heart pounding painfully against my injured ribs. Footsteps approached, and the porch light flicked on. The door opened to reveal Patricia in her bathrobe, reading glasses perched on her nose. "Can I help?" The words died on her lips as recognition dawned despite my disguise. Her face drained of color. "Chloe?" "It's me, Patty," I whispered, using my childhood nickname for her. "Can I come in? It's not safe out here." Patricia's hand flew to her chest. For a terrifying moment, I thought she might have a heart attack right there in the doorway. Then she grabbed my arm and pulled me inside, slamming and locking the door behind us. "They said you were dead," she gasped, tears already streaming down her face. "Thomas called me. There was a fall in Santorini. They couldn't find your body. How are you here? What happened?" "It's a long story," I said, my own composure finally cracking as I embraced my sister. "And you're not going to believe most of it." Over the next hour, I told Patricia everything, showing her the video Nikos had transferred to a secure flash drive. Her expressions shifted from shock to horror to rage as she absorbed the truth about Diana. "That evil, calculating bitch," Patricia hissed when I finished, a phrase I'd never heard from my typically proper sister. "She tried to kill you. She's been poisoning Thomas. And now she's playing the grieving daughter-in-law while waiting to cash in." "She's done it before," I confirmed grimly. Sophia found evidence of a previous marriage and another suspicious death. Diana is a predator, and she's very good at what she does. Patricia stood abruptly. "We're going to the police right now." "We can't," I caught her arm. "Not yet. Diana is too clever to be caught without ironclad evidence. The video shows the push, but not her confession. We need more to ensure she's put away for good and to make sure Thomas is safe." "What do you need?" Patricia asked, practical as always. "A place to hide while I gather evidence. Access to information about what Diana's doing now, and help contacting my lawyer without alerting Diana." Patricia nodded decisively. "You'll stay here. The guest room is yours for as long as needed. I can get information through Judy Harrison. You remember her? Thomas's godmother. She's been in close contact with him since your death." "Perfect. And for my lawyer, Martin Goldstein has been handling my affairs for 20 years. He's discreet, and will believe you if you tell him I need a private meeting." We stayed up late into the night, refining our approach. Patricia would continue as normal, attending the memorial service Diana was planning and gathering information. I would remain hidden, working through financial records and building our case against Diana. The next morning, Patricia returned from her errands with newspapers, all featuring stories about my tragic accident. Reading my own obituary was surreal. Diana had given interviews, portraying herself as devastated, saying all the right things about honoring my memory. "She's moving fast," Patricia reported. "Judy says Diana has already contacted your bank and lawyer. She's planning a wake at your house this weekend, before a formal memorial next week." "And Thomas?" Patricia's expression softened with concern. "Judy says he's in bad shape, barely functioning. Diana has been managing his medication and keeps him isolated. Says he's too grief-stricken for visitors." Rage and fear twisted inside me. She's increasing the dosage now that I'm gone, keeping him docile while she takes control. Patricia squeezed my hand. "We'll get him back, Chloe. I promise." Over the next 2 days, we worked methodically. Martin Goldstein, once recovered from the shock of finding me alive in his office after hours, provided crucial information about Diana's attempts to access my accounts and accelerate probate proceedings. "She came to me the very day after your accident was reported," he confirmed, outrage evident in his voice. "Wanted to know how quickly the will could be executed. I told her these things take time, especially with no body recovered. She seemed impatient." "Has she asked about specific assets?" I inquired. "She was particularly interested in your investment portfolio and the insurance policies," Martin confirmed. I stalled, of course, citing legal procedures. But she's persistent. Through Patricia's friend Judy, We learned Diana had already begun quietly selling my art collection. Pieces I had specified in my will should go to Thomas or various museums. She claimed to be simplifying things for Thomas during his grief. Most concerning were the reports about my son's deteriorating condition. Those who had seen him described him as disoriented, unnaturally subdued, and constantly medicated for anxiety and insomnia. Diana never left him alone with visitors, always controlling the conversation and cutting visits short. "She's keeping him drugged," I told Patricia after one such report. "Probably increasing the doses now that I'm not there to notice the changes in his behavior." On the afternoon before the wake, I nearly blew my cover. Patricia was at a grocery store, and I had ventured into her small backyard for some fresh air, wearing my disguise. A noise from the side of the house caught my attention. I froze as Diana herself appeared, walking briskly past the hedge that separated Patricia's property from the sidewalk. She was on her phone, talking animatedly. "The collection alone will bring close to 600,000. No, I'm not worried about the appraisals. Thomas won't question anything." I pressed myself against the house, heart hammering. Diana continued past without seeing me, but the close call reinforced the danger of my situation. She was actively liquidating my possessions while my son remained under her influence. That evening, Patricia and I finalized our plan with Sophia, who had arrived in Boston to coordinate with local authorities once we were ready to move. "The wake is tomorrow evening," Patricia confirmed. "Diana has hired caterers, invited friends, family, colleagues. She's putting on quite a show." "It's perfect," I said. "We'll have witnesses, evidence, everything we need to expose her publicly and legally." "Are you sure about the public confrontation?" Sophia asked. "It would be safer to let the police handle this quietly." I shook my head firmly. Diana thrives on manipulation and lies. Public exposure is the one thing she can't control or twist to her advantage. And it's the fastest way to shock Thomas out of whatever fog she's keeping him in. Late that night, I stood before Patricia's mirror, examining my healing injuries. The bruises had faded to yellowish green, the cuts scabbed over. I could move without wincing now, though deep breaths still caused discomfort. My face showed the strain of the past week, new lines etched by stress and pain. Tomorrow I would face the woman who had tried to kill me, who had been slowly poisoning my son, who had calculated every move with cold precision. The thought should have terrified me, but instead, I felt a strange calm. Diana had underestimated me once. She wouldn't get another chance. As I turned away from the mirror, my phone pinged with a message from Sophia. She had compiled the final evidence package: financial records showing Diana's previous identity, the enhanced video of the cliff incident, medical reports suggesting long-term low-dose poisoning, in Thomas's symptoms, documentation of Diana's rapid attempts to liquidate my assets. It was enough, more than enough. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" Patricia asked, pausing in my doorway. "I've been ready since the moment that woman pushed me off a cliff," I replied, a steel in my voice I hadn't known I possessed. She picked the wrong widow to target. Patricia smiled, a fierce expression I remembered from our childhood battles. She certainly did. Tomorrow, Diana would learn exactly what kind of woman she had failed to kill. The thought brought me the first peaceful night's sleep since Santorini. The morning of the wake dawned bright and clear, New England spring sunshine streaming through the curtains of Patricia's guest room. Today was the day Diana would finally face justice for her crimes, and my son would be freed from her manipulation. Sophia arrived early, bringing the local detective she'd been coordinating with, a serious woman named Detective Rivera, who had reviewed all our evidence and obtained the necessary warrants. "We'll have plainclothes officers positioned inside and outside the house," Detective Rivera explained, spreading a floor plan of my home across Patricia's dining table. "The catering staff has been briefed to allow us access without alerting Miss Martin." "And the timing?" I asked, studying the strategic positions marked on the map. "We wait for your signal," Sophia confirmed. "You enter, confront her, and we move in to make the arrest once she's off balance. The important thing is keeping both you and your son safe during the confrontation." Patricia placed a garment bag on the chair beside me. "I picked this up yesterday. Thought it might be appropriate for your grand entrance." Inside was a dress in vibrant crimson, elegant yet bold. The color reminded me instantly of the dress Jeffrey had given me for our 40th anniversary, the last birthday I'd celebrated with him before his death. "It's perfect," I said, touching the fabric. "Diana expects a grieving family in black. She won't expect this." While Sophia finalized details with Detective Rivera, Patricia helped me prepare. My sister styled my hair differently than my usual look, applying makeup to highlight my features rather than disguise them. The transformation was remarkable, a visual statement that I was not the victim Diana had tried to create. "How are you feeling?" Patricia asked, as she fastened a gold necklace Jeffrey had given me around my neck. I'd left it with her for cleaning months ago, a fortunate coincidence that had kept it from Diana's grasp. "Strangely calm," I admitted. "Almost like Jeffrey is with me today." Patricia squeezed my shoulder. "He would be so proud of your courage." By mid-afternoon, we were receiving updates from Judy, who had arrived early at my house to help with preparations. Diana was directing caterers with military precision, arranging photographs of me throughout the living room, and keeping Thomas sedated in the master bedroom, helping him rest before greeting mourners. Detective Rivera confirmed her team was in position, with officers already posing as catering staff and florist delivery personnel. The caterers, once discreetly informed of the situation, had agreed to cooperate fully with law enforcement. At 4:30, Patricia left to arrive at the wake as scheduled, carrying a concealed recording device to capture any incriminating statements from Diana. Sophia would enter separately with her credentials, positioning herself near Thomas to ensure his safety when everything unfolded. I remained at Patricia's house, with Detective Rivera, waiting for the signal that most guests had arrived. My heart rate remained surprisingly steady as I donned the red dress, applied a final touch of lipstick, and slipped into low heels that wouldn't aggravate my still healing injuries. "You're remarkably composed for someone about to confront their would-be killer," Detective Rivera observed as we prepared to leave. "Diana took everything from me," I replied quietly. "My son, my security, my trust in family. She doesn't get to take my dignity or courage too." At 5:45, we received the text from Patricia. "Full house, snake charming the crowd." It was time. Detective Rivera drove me to a side street near my home where we could observe the scene without being spotted. Cars lined the street, mourners dressed in somber colors filing through my front door. Through the windows, I could see people gathered in small groups, sipping drinks, their expressions appropriately mournful. "Ready?" Detective Rivera asked, passing me an earpiece that would keep me connected to the police team inside. I nodded, straightening my shoulders despite the twinge from my healing ribs. "Let's finish what Diana started in Santorini." We approached from the garden side, using the key Patricia had retrieved from its hiding place. The kitchen door opened silently, allowing us to slip in unnoticed amid the bustle of catering staff. Through the earpiece, I heard Sophia's quiet confirmation. In position near subject's husband, he appears heavily sedated but conscious. Staying hidden in the kitchen hallway, I could hear Diana's voice in the living room, her tone tremulous with perfectly modulated grief as she addressed the assembled mourners. "Chloe was more than a mother-in-law to me," she was saying. "She was a mentor, a friend, the mother I lost too young. Thomas and I are so grateful for your presence today, as we honor her beautiful spirit." The practiced insincerity in her voice strengthened my resolve. I nodded to Detective Rivera, who gave the signal through her communication device. The officers positioned throughout the house acknowledged, ready to move on my entrance. Drawing a deep breath, I stepped through the kitchen door, through the dining room, and paused at the entrance to the living room. For a moment, no one noticed me, all attention focused on Diana at the center of the room. She was dressed in elegant black, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief as she stood beside a large photograph of me. Patricia saw me first, her eyes widening before a small smile of satisfaction crossed her face. Then Judy noticed, a gasp escaping her lips that drew the attention of those nearby. Like a wave, awareness spread through the room, conversations halting mid-sentence, drinks frozen halfway to lips, expressions shifting from confusion to shock. Diana remained oblivious for several seconds, continuing her eulogy until the complete silence registered. She looked up, irritation flashing briefly across her features, before she followed the collective gaze to where I stood. The blood drained from her face so rapidly, I thought she might faint right then. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, no sound emerging. The handkerchief fell from her nerveless fingers to the floor. "Hello, Diana," I said, my voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. "I believe you were talking about me. Please, don't stop on my account." Someone dropped a glass. The shattering sound seemed to break the frozen tableau. Whispers erupted. Phones appeared, capturing the moment Diana stood face to face with the mother-in-law she had pushed off a cliff. This isn't possible," Diana finally stammered, her composure shattered. "You fell. I saw you fall." The damning words hung in the air as she realized her mistake. Her eyes darted toward the exits, but plainclothes officers had already moved to block each doorway. "Yes, Diana," I agreed calmly, walking toward her. "I fell when you pushed me off that cliff in Santorini. Luckily, a fisherman saw what happened. He rescued me. And more importantly, he recorded you doing it." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as Sophia stepped forward, holding a tablet displaying the enhanced video from Nikos. The footage played clearly, showing Diana's deliberate push and my subsequent fall. That's not what it looks like," Diana protested, her voice rising. "It was an accident." Chloe slipped. I tried to grab her. "Strange," I remarked. "That's not what you said on the cliff. You were quite clear about your intentions when you explained about the gambling debts, the life insurance policy, the plans for my inheritance." From the hallway came movement. Thomas appeared, supported by Patricia, his face pale and drawn, but his eyes clearing as they fixed on me. "Mom," he whispered, disbelief and hope warring in his voice. "I'm here, Thomas. I'm alive." I moved toward him, but Diana lunged between us. "She's lying!" Diana shrieked, desperation, replacing her usual calculated control. "This is some sick joke, an imposter. Thomas, don't listen to her." Detective Rivera stepped forward, badge displayed. "Diana Martin? Or, should I say, Diana Costas? We have a warrant for your arrest for the attempted murder of Chloe Anderson, the suspicious death of Eleni Costas in Chicago 4 years ago, financial fraud, and the ongoing poisoning of Thomas Anderson." Diana's eyes darted wildly around the room, searching for escape, for sympathy, for any way out. Finding none, she suddenly sagged, her legs buckling beneath her as she collapsed to the floor in a dead faint. The room erupted in chaos. Officers moved in to secure Diana, while medical personnel attended to Thomas. Friends and family surrounded me, questions flying faster than I could answer them. Through it all, I kept my eyes on my son, the relief on his face worth every moment of pain and fear I'd endured. As Diana was revived and handcuffed, her mascara streaking down her face, she locked eyes with me one last time. The hatred there was palpable, but so was something else: respect, however grudging, for the woman who had outsmarted her at her own game. "You should have made sure I was dead before you walked away," I told her quietly, as officers led her past me. Her response was barely audible, meant only for my ears. "Next time, I will." But there would be no next time. As Diana was escorted from my home in handcuffs, I knew with absolute certainty that this chapter of our lives was closing for good. The woman who had tried to destroy my family had failed, ultimately destroyed by her own arrogance and greed. Thomas reached for my hand, his fingers trembling but his grip strong. "Mom, I had no idea. I never suspected. I'm so sorry." I squeezed his hand gently. "We have plenty of time to talk about everything. Right now, let's get you to a hospital to flush whatever she's been giving you out of your system." As we moved toward the door, the impromptu wake turned crime scene behind us. I caught Patricia's eye across the room. She gave me a triumphant smile and a subtle thumbs up. The perfect revenge hadn't been walking into the wake in a red dress, though that moment would certainly be talked about for years to come. The perfect revenge was surviving, returning, and reclaiming everything Diana had tried to take from me, all while ensuring she would never hurt another family again. Outside, spring sunshine bathed the street in golden light. For the first time since Santorini, I took a deep breath without fear shadowing my heart. We had a long road ahead, but we would walk it together, stronger for having faced the darkest of human intentions and survived. The weeks following Diana's arrest passed in a blur of medical appointments, legal meetings, and emotional reckonings. Thomas spent 3 days in the hospital, his system slowly clearing of the various sedatives and mood-altering medications Diana had been administering in his food and drinks for months. The doctors said another few weeks could have caused permanent liver damage, he told me from his hospital bed, shame and anger warring in his expression. I never suspected. She always had a logical explanation for why I felt so foggy, so dependent on her. That's what manipulators do, I assured him, holding his hand. They isolate their targets, create dependence, and explain away all concerns. This wasn't your fault, Thomas. As Thomas recovered physically, we both began the harder work of emotional healing. The betrayal cut deep for him. The woman he had loved and trusted, revealed as a calculating predator who had married him solely for access to family money. Meanwhile, the legal case against Diana grew stronger by the day. Sophia had returned to Greece, but continued to coordinate with Boston authorities. The evidence she had gathered in Santorini, combined with financial records, medical reports, and witness testimony, created an airtight case. Diana's true history emerged through the investigation. Born Diana Costas in Chicago to Greek immigrant parents, she had married her first husband at 25, a wealthy restaurateur 30 years her senior. When her mother-in-law questioned suspicious financial transactions, the elderly woman had died in an accidental fall downstairs. Though investigated, Diana had never been charged. After collecting life insurance and inheritance, she had divorced her husband, changed her name, and moved to Boston to start the process again. She's suspected in 2 other similar cases, Detective Rivera informed me during one of our meetings. Different names, different cities, same pattern. You're the first victim who lived to testify against her. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for early June. I sat in the courtroom, back straight despite lingering discomfort from my injuries, as Diana was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her glamorous facade stripped away. She refused to look at me directly, her eyes focused on her attorney or the judge. When the judge denied bail, citing flight risk and the serious nature of multiple charges across state lines, I felt a tension I hadn't realized I was carrying release from my shoulders. Diana would remain in custody until trial, unable to threaten my family further. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered with cameras and microphones. Mrs. Anderson, how does it feel to face the woman who tried to kill you? Are you concerned about the trial outcome? Will your son testify against his wife? I paused on the courthouse steps, considering my response. In the weeks since my resurrection, I had declined all interviews, focusing instead on recovery and supporting Thomas. But now, with Diana securely in custody and preliminary legal hurdles cleared, perhaps it was time to reclaim my voice publicly as well. I'm not afraid of Diana anymore, I stated clearly. Justice is finally being served, not just for me, but for other families who suffered from her actions. My focus now is healing, both for myself and my son. We've been given a second chance, and we don't intend to waste it. That evening, Thomas and I sat on my back patio, watching fireflies appear in the gathering dusk. It was the first time we'd spent quiet time together since Santorini, without doctors or lawyers or police officers present. I keep thinking about all the warning signs I missed, Thomas said softly, staring into his tea. The way she isolated me from friends, controlled our finances, kept pushing for information about your will. I was so blind. Love makes us vulnerable, I replied. Diana is a professional predator, Thomas. She knew exactly which buttons to push, which weaknesses to exploit. The important thing is that we're both free of her now. I don't know if I'll ever trust my own judgment again, he admitted, the pain in his voice breaking my heart. You will, I promised. It will take time, but you will. We both will. Recovery came in small steps. I established a foundation to help victims of financial fraud and elder abuse, using my experience to educate others about the warning signs we had missed. Thomas joined support groups for survivors of psychological manipulation, slowly rebuilding his confidence and independence. Nikos and his family became unexpected fixtures in our lives. They visited Boston that summer, his grandsons wide-eyed at the city sights, his daughter Sophia proudly showing off her commendation from both Greek and American authorities for her role in bringing Diana to justice. "You saved my life," I told Nikos over dinner at his cousin Dimitri's restaurant. "I can never repay that debt." The fisherman shrugged, embarrassed by the gratitude. "Any decent person would do same. But not any person would be brave like you, facing the evil woman who tried to kill you." In August, exactly 3 months after the incident in Santorini, Diana's trial began. The prosecution's case was overwhelming, with evidence from multiple jurisdictions showing a pattern of predatory behavior spanning nearly a decade. When the video of my fall was played in court, audible gasps echoed through the room. I testified calmly, recounting every detail of Diana's confession on the cliff, the calculated way she had isolated and poisoned my son, the careful groundwork she had laid to access my assets after my accidental death. Diana took the stand in her own defense, attempting to portray herself as a loving wife and daughter-in-law who had been framed. But under cross-examination, her carefully constructed narrative crumbled. When confronted with financial records, medical evidence, and the damning video, her composure finally shattered. "She deserved it," Diana shouted, her carefully cultivated charm evaporating as she pointed at me. "Sitting on all that money while telling her son half would go to some art school. What kind of mother does that?" The outburst sealed her fate. After brief deliberation, the jury returned with guilty verdicts on all counts. The judge sentenced Diana to 25 years without possibility of parole, plus additional time for financial crimes that would essentially ensure she spent the rest of her life behind bars. As fall arrived in New England, painting the trees in fiery colors, Thomas and I took a weekend trip to the coast, part of our ongoing effort to rebuild our relationship and heal from the trauma we had both experienced. Walking along the shoreline, waves lapping gently at our feet, Thomas asked the question that had been lingering between us. "How did you find the strength to come back and face her? After everything she did, after falling from that cliff, after nearly dying, most people would have just gone to the police." I considered his question carefully, watching seagulls wheel overhead. "When I was falling, I finally said, my only thought was of you. Not fear for myself, but fear for you, still in her clutches. That love gave me a strength I never knew I possessed." "You saved us both," Thomas said quietly. "We saved each other," I corrected. "And in the process, we learned something valuable about ourselves and about life." "What's that?" "That our greatest strength often emerges from our moments of greatest vulnerability. That trust, once broken, can be rebuilt stronger than before. And that sometimes, you have to fall before you truly learn how to rise again." Thomas smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen from him in months. Those are good lessons to carry forward. As we turned back toward the car, the setting sun painting the water in shades of gold and crimson, I felt a profound sense of peace. Diana had tried to end my life, but instead, she had given me a new appreciation for it. Every sunrise, every conversation with my son, every moment of connection with friends and family now carried a weight and beauty I might never have recognized otherwise. Life would never be the same after Santorini, but perhaps it could be better, deeper, more authentic and appreciative. If that was the unexpected gift from my near-death experience, then I would embrace it with open arms and an open heart. Have you ever had to rise from your own personal fall? How did you find the strength to rebuild and start again? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story of survival and justice resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might need a reminder that even after the hardest falls, we can rise again stronger than before. Thank you for being part of my journey of healing and renewal.